Under the Canadian law, euthanasia should be legalized to suffering citizens of our country. This should be a right to Canadians to not suffer any longer than they need to or want to in a life-threatening or terminal illness situation. I will be explaining to you the difference between murder and euthanasia, what the reason is behind this bill not yet being passed in Canada, also how euthanizing a patient would benefit the family in any way. So I believe that euthanasia should not be considered murder in any way, shape, or form. By euthanizing someone, it would be in a very extreme case of physical pain or mental instability. Euthanasia literally means good death. It is used to refer to a situation where one person ends another person's life in order to end that person's suffering. So the option to be euthanized in a time of severe pain and mental disability should be set in a person's will beforehand to ensure that they get exactly what they want. So this leads into me talking about the 3 different types of euthanasia and the difference between euthanization and murder. So to start, voluntary euthanasia is where a person who is capable of making rational decision agrees to have their life ended. So involuntary euthanasia is where the rational person's life is ended without that person's consent. So which would also be referred to murder, but this is the only form that I would refer euthanization to murder. So a third form is non-voluntary euthanization, which is where a person is incapable of making rational decisions. So an example is if someone is suffering from dementia, assisted suicide is different because the final act is performed by the person committing suicide, whereas in euthanasia, the person's life is ended by another person. So murder is a wrongful act committed without any consent of any shape or form, which is not justified. So which does relate to involuntary euthanasia. Okay, so most people's arguments on the topic of euthanization is that someone in a mentally disabled state would not be able to make the right choice for themselves at the time. So I think that this would be considered wrong because, like what I said before about being set in their will, it would help out towards the end and it would help up clear any questions or judgments about this case. So in my opinion, the bill has not been passed because of people's very strong opinions on the matter. There are, of course, both sides to any argument, but I think that both sides are very equal because it could be on a religious side or just on my side where I am very strongly opinionated. So in the government's mind, it all comes back to human rights. This bill has tried to be passed about 2 times before, and one was very recent in 2011, but it died down. It all comes back to human rights and everyone having different opinions on it. So this is very controversial in the government, and it would create a great amount of backlash on the government, which would create for even more drama with the government. So in my opinion, euthanizing a clearly suffering patient would be, in a way, saving a life. So you are saving this person's life from hurting any longer or getting into a worse condition than they already are in. It would help, in turn, get the family's lives back on track and give them time to grieve. If they are just watching their family member or loved one suffer in the bed, it doesn't give you time to grieve. It just makes the process a lot longer and more extensive, and I don't think it should be like that. I don't think that euthanasia would be the best closure for a family in this situation of a terminal patient, but it is certainly better than watching your loved ones suffer and be in pain and be incapable of anything, right? So, in conclusion, under the Canadian law, euthanizing patients should be legalized to suffering citizens of our country. This should be a right for us. Like, if dogs and animals are allowed to do it, I believe that we should be allowed to do it. It is much different, but also in some ways the same. So what do you think?